إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله عز وجل كما جاء في محكم التنزيل. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Dear brothers and sisters, we begin with praise and gratitude. This praise and gratitude is the natural expression of the conscious and even the unconscious beings in creation. Those that are functioning based upon the divine will that brought them into existence, and those that derive all of their existence and their functionality from the divine truth. So we praise Him in abundant praise that is suitable for Him. We ask Him to guide us. We are all beings that are souls living in an animal body. So without guidance, we will function as other animals. With the guidance of the divine revelation that was sent to the prophets, we rise above a selfish, desirous, egotistical desire, and we become servants of God. So this is the ultimate truth. We will come up short. We will make mistakes. That is the natural reality of all people. So we seek His forgiveness. So I bear witness that there is no deity and nothing worthy of worship except for God alone. And I bear witness that Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, that he was the final messenger and servant sent to mankind, so that they could all realize the ultimate truth of life. I was in Washington, D.C. In the early part of this week, and I was there on the request and behest of our Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, His Eminence, one of the great scholars of the world, who has basically formed a connection with the whole world in establishing a standard of divine revelation toward bringing about peace in a troubled world. So his connection with the United States, he has a long-time student, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, and he has come to know one of our great imams, Imam Muhammad Majid from the Adams Center in DC. And we basically have been working over these last 2 years to form relationships with our fellow brothers and sisters in humanity, from the pastors and rabbis from the evangelical community and the Jewish community. So in DC, we gathered together to draft a Washington Declaration of Peace and Understanding as these three religions, where they meet, where they coincide, what they stand for. And as I spoke with some of my pastor friends, they're very adamant about trying to share their message. They are missionaries. So they keep referring to the love of God, the love of God. And they talk about how we're all supposed to love God and love each other. And this is obviously a beautiful statement. And this is based upon a couple of verses that they have in John chapter 4, verse 6. It says, whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. Matthew chapter 22, 36 through 40, a man comes up to Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, and he said, what is the greatest of all commandments? And Jesus, peace be upon him, replied, first is that you love God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is like that, you love your neighbor as yourself. And then he says, all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So I was sitting with my pastor friend eating lunch, and I'm letting him say this even though I grew up hearing this and I'm very aware of this. But in adab, in my love for him, I have to let him, do his work, try to convince me. So I said, now, Pastor, the Quran and the Sunnah completely agree with this. His face looked, like he's doesn't, like he's lost his mind. How? He says, how? And I said, well, really, I think it's very important that when we come here, we don't just like draft a declaration to give to everybody only about how we're going to work for peace, but we really get to know each other. Just like I've listened to you, you're going to have to give me an opportunity to explain to you the light of God as He revealed to His final messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so then that talk, mashallah, was an enlightening experience. So, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, لا يبلغ العبد حقيقة الإيمان حتى يحب للناس ما يحب لنفسه. This is a hadith, there is no question about its authenticity. It has been narrated in Musnad Ahmad and Tirmidhi and Nasa'i and all of that. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, as is narrated by Anas bin Malik, no servant of God will reach true faith until they love for other people what they love for themselves. And in the hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he says, أَحِبَّ لِلنَّاسِ مَا تُحِبُّ لِنَفْسِكَ تَكُنْ مُؤْمِنًا. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, as is also well established with an authentic chain of narration, that the Prophet commanded the believers, love for other people what you love for yourself, and then you will become a true believer. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he talked about this concept of love, and he said, مَنْ أَحَبَّ لِلَّهِ وَأَبْغَضَ لِلَّهِ فَقَدْ اسْتَكْمَلَ الْإِيمَانِ. Whoever loved for the sake of God, knowing what He loves, and loving it for Him, and whoever dislikes something because they know what He dislikes, then they have perfected faith. The whole word Islam means to be completely devoted to God, to prefer and love God over yourself and your own personal desires and whims, and to follow His Prophet who He has sent as the best example, and loving Him more than yourself. That's what Islam means. So when we talk about this word love, it is referring to an inner feeling. Love is the feeling in your heart of warmness, of an attachment, a concern for something. That's what love is. It's in here. And so then that love will manifest itself in many other ways. Love will come out as an expression of kindness, of recognition, of acknowledgement, of niceness, of gentleness. These are all meanings that the Quran heavily emphasizes in Islam. You know, if you talk about the literal meaning of Islam, which is to love God more than yourself and to prefer His will over your own, to submit to His will, believing that His will is more important and superior than yours or anyone else's. That's what that means, Islam. To be devoted to God. If you go into the Webster's Dictionary and the American Heritage Dictionary, they define the love of God as a devotion to Him, which is Islam. And they define His love for us, the fact that He gives us everything and takes care of us. You see, the whole Quran starts off with this point. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It all began in honor of and remembrance and in the truth of God, who has primarily two descriptions that are overarching every other. This is how Imam al-Tabari explains it in his tafsir. All things began with God, the Creator, who has asma, ism jins here. It's not referring to a name. We don't want to boil things down to some sort of a superficial thing. The asma'illah, with all that He is known by and all of the truth that He represents, with all beautiful descriptions that He is, primarily knowing that He is Rahman. And what did they say that is? Masdar kulli khair, the beneficent, the benevolent, the one that is the source of all existence, all blessings, all goodness. That is Rahman. Rahim, the one who is dishing it out constantly. He is merciful because He's giving it to flawed entities without limit. unless they limit themselves consciously by separating themselves from Him. And that is the worst thing that could happen to anyone. To separate themselves from His eternal mercy and compassion by saying, I don't need Him, I don't want Him, I don't need to appreciate Him. And so that is the essence of religion for us. The whole Quran begins talking about the active showing of the love of God to existence, and that is how we exist. So we come to appreciate that, which is why the next verse says, Alhamdulillah. We come to love Him back. And that's what إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ means. That we have devoted ourselves in service to You. You alone. None other. We do not serve any other but You. The one who gave us our life and everything in it. We are in love with You. You are our ultimate attachment. Our gratitude is shown by servitude. And the best conscious way to serve Him is to seek His help. وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And that's why Imam Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyya, he wrote his 3-volume book on Madarij al-Salikin fi Manazil إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, which is like a 2,000-page book. It's a tafsir of this verse. Because he's saying the whole religion is that. That is the whole essence, devotion to God. So, the word mercy is overemphasized as a translation for rahmah. If you look in English vernacular, mercy is usually one with power. You know, we used to play a game called Mercy when I was a kid. Anyone of you heard of that? It's where we take lock hands and whoever can, you say mercy. There's a meaning of dominance here. We don't even realize by using this specific translation of how we relate to the world, we are misrepresenting and buying into Islamophobia. Now for God it's mercy, because He is dominant over us. But for us to each other, my dear brothers and sisters, the correct word is benevolence. A kindness of heart, a willingness to care and do good acts of selfless charity and kindness and concern and empathy and gentleness. This we call benevolence. So the Prophet's whole mission, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, we have only sent you as an act of benevolence to the world. Because when you say mercy, people are going to get this idea that you're dominating them. Because that is a meaning under the dictionary word mercy. This is just one of the examples of many examples where Muslims, a long time ago when they first started writing stuff and making posters, they threw out a word, everybody got used to it, and nobody thought about, why are we using this word? Is this the best word? Is this the ideal translation? Or is it a group thing? We all just saw it on many boards, it was written, they passed it around. It's very important for us to be very precise in our love for God to explain His message in the best of ways. And that's when He says, أُدْعُوا إِلَى سَبِيلِ رَبِّكَ بِالْحِكْمَةِ وَالْمَوْعِظَةِ الْحَسَنَةِ وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. We have to review who we are and what we represent and how we are communicating that, because I have met people. I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A guy gave a lecture at a church, Iraqi guy. He came to say, I left Islam. And I left Islam because there's no love in Islam. I came here, I met these people, and they were so loving and nice. Nobody hangs up the phone so they say, I love you and all of this, and I never heard that from anybody back in Iraq. Ever. All I saw was rigidity and strictness and harshness and rules and regulations. That's how I perceived this religion. And guess what, my dear brothers and sisters? Many Muslims are weak in their faith because they saw this same problem. And the only reason why they're still there is because of a cultural concern of shame within their family structure. The problem is not with Islam or its Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The problem is with some people who claim to own that truth, and they have a very mistaken understanding of what Islam is all about, starting from Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, as we have been talking about. And وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, as we're talking about. These are fundamental basics. But some people, their ego uses religion and the love gets kicked out because their ego is an animalistic, selfish thing. It's not a spiritual reality. So that's where the love went, in the flaws of humanity. That's why we have to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to go back to His beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, so that we can embody and embrace the love of God as it is a fundamental teaching of the essence of Islam and the concept of the expression of it to the world around us. This is the nature of the marriage. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. I have made a sign in mankind, He's saying, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ. And that sign that you will know me by is that I've created spouses for you. And that you will get married and live in tranquility and peace with them. And I've decreed two main qualities for a healthy marriage. And as someone who has counseled probably over 100 married couples over the years, this is the fundamental problem. Just one ayah of the Quran, if they would just truly embrace it and know their enemy well, and that enemy wants them in their selfish, greedy, personal ego and desires to destroy this marriage. He has decreed that the healthy marriage has two qualities. Mawadda, which is that hubb al-ali. It's a deep loving affection. Mawadda, so God is not known as muhib, as one of the scholars have said, that this is not a specific name, it is mu'awwal from af'al. But he is al-wadud. He is known as al-wadud in the Quran. This is well established, thabit ism lillah, a description of God. Wadud is the deeply affectionately concerned, loving one. So the mawadda is that nothing can get between you and your spouse. You have a deep loving affection between you, nothing can break that bond. You're always going to return back to that essence of the covenant you have, that you must work to keep this love together. Warahma, benevolence. Random acts of care and kindness and good etiquettes, good manners, smiles, compassion, understandingness. This is the healthy marriage. This is how it is established. So the Quran emphasizes acts of love more than the concepts of love itself. Why? Because love can become superficial. I met more than one convert to Islam that said, I grew up, one of them actually, the sister was the daughter of a pastor in a church. And she said, I grew up seeing love thrown around superficially, fakely. And love, love, love. And then in the real knowledge of people preaching that on the pulpit, and in seeing how they selectively choose to express that love, I felt it was superficial. So when I learned about Islam, I found a pragmatic system to cultivate and maintain that love through how do we live in submission to God. So there's a full system of loving Him and loving others that you can follow, and it is quantified there in the scripture in the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if we will, as truly loving servants of our Master, Creator, Provider, and Sustainer, embrace the concept of ihsan, as mentioned thoroughly in the Quran, as that is one of the most loved traits of God. Because why? You're recognizing His presence over your personal desire, and that leads you to altruism. A lifestyle where it's not about me, it's about them. I have to take care of all those around me, starting with my parents and those in my house, and with my neighbors, as the ayah talks about ihsan. If we embrace this altruistic compassion and this benevolence of the Prophet ﷺ, then the world will come to know God and love Him. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه وهو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So, technically, this is, what we'll be doing at MCC. We've decided, from some good feedback, that we're going to make for each month a theme. And we're going to emphasize points that in that month, whether you're at the Jummah or whether you're coming to a different lecture or the youth program or the Sunday school or things like that, there's always going to be a theme that will develop in the houses of the believers a healthy discussion of self-accountability and spiritual refinement and character refinement. So this being in Black History Month, we saw last week, we talked about how Black Lives Matter, and we talked about some core teachings about Islam and our reality here in America and where our priorities stand. So someone might think, well, Imam, you've gone off the subject, we're sticking right to the subject. If you truly love people, which you should, love everyone, we dislike actions. We dislike actions that are rebellion to divine truth. When somebody does something against God or promotes something against God, we dislike that. لا نحب هذا الشيء. But the person, we wish for all of them to go to heaven. We wish for all of them to have a good life, to have happiness, to have peace, to have eternity in the bliss. That's what we wish for everybody. Why? Because it's sunnah. فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ أَلَّا يَكُونُ مُؤْمِنِينَ. What is Allah telling the Prophet ﷺ? He's saying, look, you're deeply concerned and it's bothering you so much that people are disbelieving and that they are living a life of spiritual decadence. So he's just saying, don't allow it to bother you. Keep loving them, do your thing. At the end, their hearts and their decision, their beliefs is between them and their maker. You don't own that, you cannot worry so much about the action, but you can worry about how you are helping them and making their life better by showing them the guidance of Allah Azza wa Jal by word and deed. This is what it is. So we should be that way. So racism cannot exist if we truly love people. You see? And if you look at the Islamic concepts we talked about last week, you would not dislike someone because of the color of their skin unless you just don't know Islam. Unless you don't know that you are Bani Adam, wa Adam min turab. We are all human beings, all related, every last one of us. And the color of our skin has nothing to do with our precedence or value. But I'm warning you all, it's easy to say, I'm not racist. It's more difficult to become an anti-racist and to truly deal with the fact that you may have been raised in an environment where people say and do racist stuff and don't even know it, because this is groupthink. And you should not go along with it. And you should stop people and say, look, don't you love this person? Don't you want for them the best, no matter who they are? Don't you love yourself? Don't you love your maker? Then you would not talk like that or think like that about someone. Like somebody will be referring to something that happened, and it really is not, nobody's actually asking about, nor is there a need for a witness, but they'll say the black guy. If there's a white guy, would you say a white guy? You would not say a white guy. How come you say the black guy? So this is where we need to see true love is a blind concept. We don't put ourselves in categories of tribalism and look at people based upon anything other than the potentiality of knowing Allah. And that is the most beautiful thing in existence. And that's what love is all about. So now when it comes to Valentine's Day, the scholars have differed, and they have different reasons why they have differed. In a nutshell, a scholar who would understand Valentine's Day as some sort of Christian celebration is wrong. That's just a dead wrong basis in the first place. It is not. You go ask an atheist why they're doing the Valentine's Day. Because atheists, their religion is anti-religion. And on the top of their list is the most popular one, is called Christianity. And they're always against Christians and everything. Okay? If you haven't met atheists yet, that's what you will learn from them. The last thing I want to do is be associated with Christianity. Okay? It is not a Christian holiday, number one. Number two, it is not a holiday like a Eid. Eid is like everybody gets together and they're all, making prayers and making feasts and all of that. It's an occasion in which people are remembering a guy named Saint Valentine, who happened to be a Christian. But his value was the same as our understanding, which is when the king or the emperor said, there can be no more marriage. I'm prohibiting marriage. I want soldiers to go fight for the empire and be ready and willing to die. And if he's got a wife and kids at home, he's going to be a coward and leave the war. So no more marriage so that the soldiers go win the battle for us. St. Valentine's Day said, nope. God has decreed that there should be marriage, husbands and wives and families. So St. Valentine was holding secret marriages. When they found out, they killed him. He became a martyr. St. Valentine's Day. So we have nothing else. So when I sat with Sheikh Ahmed al-Kurdi, who was the Khabir al-Mawsu' al-Fiqh al-Kuwaitiyya, the designated scholar by the Fatwa Council of Kuwait to oversee and research and pass out edicts from the 45-volume Encyclopedia of Islamic Legal Theory with Comparative Opinions. He said, it's like when the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina and they're like, yeah, we're fasting Ashura. And he's like, why? And they're like, well, because Moses was saved from Pharaoh. And then his response was, نحن أولى بموسى منكم. فنحن أولى باحترام الزواج منكم. We should use this opportunity to talk about how marriage is the key fundamental core of a healthy society. And that marriage is the only way that the love that is emphasized over much in our culture should be practiced. There should be no falling in love before a marriage. And we should use this opportunity to say all the statistics and facts of what's wrong of our society and the broken homes and children with no father or can't remember who it was because of all of this stuff that is not in the light of God. So some are saying don't do it because there's all kind of people doing zina on that day. Okay? So, but I would say I've yet never met anybody that said the purpose of St. Valentine's Day is to celebrate zina. I've never heard or understood that from anyone. So just because some people are doing something in contrast to the actual purpose of the event does not cancel out the event. So whether you follow that one or that one, the major point as MCC we understand, you can say it's haram and follow that, or you can say Sheikh Ahmed al-Kurdi or Sheikh so-and-so said that, and so you follow your opinion, you follow mine. This is not a matter of Amr bil Ma'ruf. Amr bil Ma'ruf ma ulima min ad-dini bil durura. When you have an agreed upon thing, we have 5 days to pray. Someone doesn't pray, brother, you need to pray. Everybody should talk about that. Somebody out in the club drinking, we all know it's haram. Everybody knows it. That's an agreed upon thing. Amr bil Ma'ruf. Nothing al munkar, right? But you don't take matters of legitimate dispute among scholars because there's no clear text and there's just a matter of juristic reasoning as to how they came to it and make it your big jihad that you're out there trying to convince everybody and Facebook, oh, look at all you and all this, and this is a waste of our time. So it's up to you how you want to deal with it. The bottom line is, as we concluded the first part of the sermon, if we come to know and love God, and we come to know and love His messenger more than ourselves, and we love our spouses as was intended in the Quran, the world will become a much better place. This is what Allah has revealed, and this is how we should live our lives. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, guide us to love you. Ya Allah, help us to truly, genuinely love you from the bottom of our heart. Ya Allah, help that to manifest in all of the beautiful ways that you have legislated through the example of your beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ya Allah, we ask you to make us a people who review ourselves, who review our community, who review our cultures, and we look into your message that you sent to your Prophet, and we try to adjust ourselves accordingly. Ya Allah, help us to not allow our religion become something that we saw other people doing, so we follow. Ya Allah, help religion become a conviction that comes from a research of your message that you revealed and preserved for our knowledge and understanding until the Day of Judgment. Ya Allah, help us to become a people of genuine truth, who make our priorities according to the priorities you have revealed, and who are not ignorantly going around condemning people without knowledge. Ya Allah, help us to become a people who use religion as a means for spreading goodness and charity and kindness and concern for the well-being of others, and not for a means of divisiveness and hate and backbiting and anger and slander, because that is not your message, and we need to learn that. Ya Allah, help us to learn this. Ya Allah, we ask you to send your peace and blessings and mercy upon your final messenger Muhammad wa aqim as-salat.